those of you who don't know me, Mohammed Reza, Nitel, Channel Manager. South Florida, pretty much Southeast, anywhere in the country. Who Nitel is, most of you already probably know. We are a fiber and PLS multi-site DIA provider nationwide, 132 carriers. Anywhere in the United States, we can provide service, including Puerto Rico and 200 international countries. International business is growing. So if you have clients that has remote sites in Europe or Asia, or even in Afghanistan, believe me, we can provide service. So that's how deep we go. But most importantly, what I want to talk about, I don't want to take too much of your time telling you a story about Nitel, but what separates Nitel from all other carrier, I think, is the key. With all the carrier consolidation is going on in the industry, people are getting sick and tired of all this merger and acquisition between Earthlink and Windstream. You know, I worked for Windstream in the past. I have my resume goes all the way back to WorldCom, to USLAC, then FDN, then into the, so your clientele and partners are looking for alternative carriers that can really provide you a boutique type of service from end to end. From designing the solution with our engineer, if it's a multi-site DIA or MPLS, then propose a solution. Then once it is closed, then the kickoff on the project call, it's outstanding. I mean, there are a lot of examples I can give you, but I'm not going to take away the thunder from Ron, especially talk about the SD-WAN product. Get ready, folks, because by 2020, it's going to be $6 billion industry. If you're not catching in or learning or focusing on connection to Azure Cloud or SD-WAN, bring your own bandwidth, I'm going to pass it on to Ron, and he will show you a real-time portal that you have with the Versa, and it's all yours, Ron.
Okay. My name's Ron Anastasio, and I'm a senior sales engineer for Nitel. So I know Mo talked about Nitel, but I'm going to go through a few slides. This is our company overview presentation. I'm just going to go through a few of the slides, and then we'll switch over to the SD-WAN, just so that you have a better idea of Nitel. All right, so why Nitel for customers, the network design, and that will especially take place when we talk about SD-WAN solutions design and providing the premium customer experience. Now, one of the things I want to show you as far as what does Nitel do? Let me switch over. Our core services are dedicated internet, which a lot of you would probably already quoted out, MPLS, SD-WAN services, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, multi-service access, which is MPLS and DIA all over the single circuit, Ethernet services and private lines, and then we could also layer on voice services, manage hardware, wireless internet backup, Cloud Connect services, which is a direct connection into AWS, Azure, IBM software, and then broadband services with our MPLS, DIA, or SD-WAN services. Now, with the broadband services, that is completely off net. We are reselling other broadband carrier services, but the client can get one bill. So the other slide I wanted to go over is this, which is to show you the Nitel footprint. As far as the small orange dots are where Nitel has customers. So as you can see, basically we can service pretty much anywhere in the U.S. as well as Canada. We have over 130 NNIs or network-to-network interconnects with various last mile providers, providing fiber, copper, and the large orange dots are actually the ones where we have these large orange dots are where our data centers are. So we have 7 data centers spread throughout the country. So we can provide 2 different types of services. What we call on-net, meaning where we're bringing the client's data back onto the Nitel network, basically onto one of these 7 data centers, where Nitel is providing the internet access, the MPLS, the voice services, or possibly, since we have these NNIs and these partnership agreements with these various carriers, we can also provide off-net or a resell of another carrier's services. So if a customer is looking for redundant dedicated internet circuits, basically they don't want 2 Nitel internet circuits, then we could provide them a Nitel internet service as well as possibly an off-net, possibly level 3 AT&T, something that is completely separate from the Nitel network. Now, obviously, depending on if fiber is available, things like that. Any questions on that? The other tool that we have is what we call IntelliPro. So it's a pricing tool that you can use where you enter in the addresses, and it will actually give you the pricing, the best pricing based off of all our NNI partners. So if you have 20 sites, you enter in the 20 sites in there, and it will automatically go through our database and basically spit out the best price for each location. We're going to talk about SD-WAN. I'm sure nobody's heard of it, right? And particularly, basically, Nitel's implementation of SD-WAN services and how we feel that it'll solve some of the network and security challenges that companies have. So again, my name is Ron Anastasio, Senior Sales Engineer at Nitel, and my email address is there. But I'll be around afterwards if you have any more specific questions. All right, so first off, we're going to talk about some of the WAN options that companies are using today. So a lot of companies basically employ different approaches. A large majority are using VPN tunnels over standard internet connections. These could be dedicated, this could be broadband. 38% use MPLS, right? A lot of your clients probably use MPLS. And 31% use a combination of MPLS and internet. How are they protecting their networks? They use a variety of different ways. Some use branch firewalls at each location. Some backhaul their traffic over the MPLS to a data center or a host site. Some financial institutions do that, banks, things like that. And some basically don't allow internet access. I was talking to a company yesterday. They don't allow internet access at their branch offices. That's just the way it is. So that's, obviously that's safe, but given how a lot of companies now are moving their applications to the cloud, it doesn't seem very viable. Some of the network challenges, a lot of IT leaders are stating, the high latency in some of their locations. Especially, like I just said, that some of them are moving their applications off-site into the cloud. More bandwidth requirements. And the cost of buying and managing appliances, right? If you have a firewall that needs an annual maintenance contract every year, the costs add up. And the cost and the complexity of MPLS. That's always what we sometimes hear. As far as the security challenges for IT leaders, most of them, 55 or 58%, identify the network as a top security risk, and half of them believe that they're paying a premium. And that's not just for the firewalls that they have in place, but it's primarily the actual staff, whether it's outsourced staff that they're having to pay for or in-house staff. And you could see here as far as the salaries of IT personnel. It's expensive. And 40% are choosing to do nothing. Now, they may have a firewall in place, but they may not have changed rules for the past 2 years, right? Any questions on this, or can anybody add to it? Is that what you guys are hearing also? All right, so we'll go over the SD-WAN fundamentals. So SD-WAN is basically software-defined wide area networking, SD-WAN. It's a transformational approach to wide area network design for simplified deployment and management of branch office WAN connectivity from a centralized controller. All right, the key features are multiple active circuit connectivity with a single CPE device. So there's a single device at the client site that can accept multiple types of access circuits. A single pane of glass network visibility and control. Basically what that means is a single web portal for them to be able to view utilization, manage the network.
And they can do that with multiple bandwidth, right? Like fiber, broadband, DSL, whatever they have.
Correct, correct. And we'll discuss that later on too, but yes, when I say access circuits, yes, it could be an MPLS circuit over fiber, could be over copper, it could be broadband, it could be DSL, it even could be LTE or wireless. Application traffic load balancing, application traffic shaping and steering, automatic circuit failover, virtualized network function service chaining and layering, and zero-touch provisioning of CPE devices, right? Basically, it's send it out, it basically sets itself up. All right, so this is an example of a circuit failover. So the legacy solution, which in this case is basically a company that has an MPLS network and a public internet connection at both the locations. One's a branch office, the other one's a data center. So you see here, you have packets going through the MPLS network from the branch office to the data center. So what happens? There's an MPLS circuit failure. There's a delayed failover to the internet, right? A lot of your clients probably have this set up. I mean, we sell this design. So some of the cons of this legacy circuit failover solution is that there's in this scenario there's at least 3 different devices that need to be in place. There's the routers for each of the connections, you know, the MPLS connection and the internet connection, and there has to be a firewall that's responsible for that failover, right? So in this example, there's 3 devices at each of these locations, which adds to the complexity. There's also the delayed failover. Typically, you know, it may be, again, you know, as long as the actual data packets do get from the branch office to the data center, may not be a big deal, but there will be a delay in the cutover. Typically, when we set something up like this, you know, we use routing to actually be responsible for the failover, or you could use the firewall to take care of the failover. But again, the design is complex, requires multiple pieces of equipment. So here's the example of the SD-WAN. The MPLS circuit fails. The internet access, basically instantaneous failover through the internet circuit. Again, with this, basically we're looking at a single CPE device at each location. Instantaneous failover, so it's a lot simpler design. Any questions? Yep.
Well, so I mean, educating myself a little bit on SD-WAN, you know, it looks like the MPLS replacement, right? Pretty much so. Is there
Possibly.
Is there any scenario where MPLS is still better played than SD-WAN?
There are some scenarios, and this is why I never go in blind and just say, this is going to replace your MPLS network. Because we have to first understand what are their full requirements, right? Do they have any SLAs specific to customers or even within their own organization? Where those SLAs may not be able to be met by standard internet connections, right? Because an internet connection, those data packets, even though it's going through SD-WAN, where it's encrypted, you have class of service going over it, you can prioritize obviously certain types of data packets. It's still going out over the internet, and nobody can control the internet, right? So technically, yes, it can replace an MPLS network. Should it? To be determined, as far as depending on the client's requirements, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's to be decided. So, I mean, Oscar, if you have an opportunity on the enterprise current design they currently have, but enhance it with the bandwidth. Then give you option B with the SD-WAN solution, whether it's a shared access, whether it's a cloud connect, or a lot of questions that needs to be asked. And I wouldn't say that SD-WAN is replacing MPLS. That is too early. I wouldn't put that on that at all.
Technically, it can, but again, depends on requirements.
And
Yep,
MPLS implementation takes a long time, right?
exactly.
Talking months and months.
Yeah.
We are doing it in 5 to 6 months now. Our fiber, our service delivery team is a makeover now. We got guys from CenturyLink, mostly from Windstream guys, the core best provisioning guys, all the layout is going on in the industry. So we grab them. We have them now. We are actually, if it's a customer has an existing fiber circuit today, I can guarantee we're doing it less than 60 days. If they have an existing fiber circuits today on MPLS, on all the sides, they are upping the bandwidth, we can still do it in 60 to 90 days. Am I going to guarantee you that? No. I mean, we're still going to guarantee you 120 days. But I'm going to under-promise.
Right. But your point is that it takes a while to get a fiber-based MPLS circuit installed, right? That is correct. And we can augment. Let's say if one of the requirements is they need, and I don't know. Maybe they want to keep their MPLS circuit, but they need more bandwidth. But they don't want to wait the 90 to 120 days, or plus it may be expensive to upgrade that circuit. Then we can augment their bandwidth by possibly putting in a broadband, a 50 meg, a 50 by 20 broadband connection, right? And then aggregate that bandwidth using SD-WAN, right? So there's different ways to kind of give a solution for that. Another question?
Yeah, I'm just curious, when you say delayed failover, how much of a delay are you talking about in that instance?
It depends. It depends on the type of device you're using. It may be a matter of, if it's BGP, maybe a matter of 30 seconds. Firewalls may take, we're not talking a ton of time, right? We're talking seconds, but to some companies, that may be an issue, right? I mean, we talk to a lot of financial institutions, companies that provide emergency services, where they're looking to get away from BGP because they think that takes too long for those changes to propagate. So with SD-WAN, it's pretty instantaneous. But yeah, you're right. I mean, we're not talking like minutes or hours, but there is still a little bit of lag. So what makes Nitel different? It's a single pane of glass, provides visibility and analytics for application performance, security threats, bandwidth utilization, and that's a portal that I will definitely get to, so that you guys at least get a sneak peek at the type of analytics the customer can access. There's also the fully integrated next-gen firewall and unified threat management that is built into the box. And what I forgot to mention is our platform is built on the Versa platform, right? So if you guys have been talking SD-WAN before, you may have heard of VeloCloud, which I believe Windstream is using, AT&T. CenturyLink is using Versa, and we're using Versa. We went through a whole process of looking at all the SD-WAN providers last year, and we just thought they were the best fit for us, as far as they were the most carrier-friendly, and we liked the fact that we could integrate the firewall features all in the same appliance, whereas other SD-WAN platforms like VeloCloud cannot. Basically, if you have the VeloCloud SD-WAN device, you also still need to have a firewall. Okay, so it's a separate device.
Also the features too, right? Our features are loaded, so most of them are, as one company is selling you the box, then the a la carte, the item. We got three different products, very simple. You pick and choose what you want on it, and Ron can help you set the pricing or
Is it based on throughput? Like what kind of bandwidth you're getting from different type of SDWAN?
Well, bandwidth is gonna be aggregated,
Right.
so it's from 52 gig or 500 meg you want.
Yeah, I've got a slide in here that kind of goes over it, but it is total aggregate bandwidth, and it's only downloads. So some of the other carriers will take into account download and upload speeds, but we only care about download. It's a firewall that's built into the Versa platform. We don't. It's Versa software firewall. The actual hardware is Advantech, but the software is Versa.
We're starting to see 45 days and
45 days for
AT&T now,
for SD-WAN implementation.
whatever we're putting in.
Okay.
Enterprise concept. But the thing about it is where they lack is where they have to deal with the RBOC for location. And then you get 6 months to a year before we see that circuit coming up.
Right.
Because there's special construction and everything else.
Right.
And the value really saw here is if you can coordinate that and take over management of it, that's good.
Right. Right. So one of the other things is, and we talked about this already, is complete managed solution that includes Nitel network, managed equipment, wireless, and even management of third-party internet circuits. Right? We discussed that. Here's also what I see as another differentiator is that we assign a dedicated SD-WAN engineer who will help the customer design, implement, and support. So what that means is basically after the sale, one of the sales engineers like myself may be involved as far as with the overall design, if we're including an MPLS, dedicated internet, and SD-WAN, voice services, whatever the whole network design is. But there will be a separate person that only deals with the SD-WAN portion that will help the client through the actual implementation. So they'll have meetings, and you may also be involved in that. They will help the client figure out, what types of rules need to be set up, what do you have on your network, and what security rules need to be put in place. And I'm not aware of any other carrier that actually will do that, right? Some carriers will basically send them a spreadsheet and say, fill this out. We will actually have an engineer that will help the client through that whole process. Right. So here our solution is, again, we talked about, it's Nitel owned and operated. Our SD-WAN equipment is currently in 2 locations, Chicago and Dallas. So we have redundant controllers and directors in both of those data centers. Again, powered by Versa, complete solution. Nitel circuits will support third-party circuits, managed hardware, simple pricing. Really, minimum requirements that we need is basically the aggregate bandwidth at each location and which security feature do you want. As far as the different features, we have the SD-WAN, which I call our base. Then we have the next-gen firewall, and then we have what we call the unified threat management. The main things here, as far as the base SD-WAN package, includes the SD-WAN software, the analytics, as well as a stateful packet inspection firewall. So if that is the minimum requirements, as security-wise, is that they have a stateful packet inspection firewall, then that base SD-WAN package should be enough for them. If they require things like web content filtering, then the next-gen feature set is what they're going to need. And if they're, let's say, a financial institution or maybe educational organization, then they may require the unified threat management, which includes the IPS-IDS, as well as what's the other thing? Network antivirus and malware protection, right? So those are the 3 things those are the 2 main things we'll need to know: how much aggregate bandwidth, as well as which security feature set are they going to need. Yes. I do not have, right now we're not really allowed to show a price table.
It's a super secret pricing.
That'll have to go through Mo.
Super secret double price.
But obviously, as you quote,
So I figured it's simple.
yeah, no, as you quote these, you'll kind of figure it out. But who knows? I'm assuming they'll eventually let us send out a table, but as of right now, it can't.
I will speak to that. They really want to understand the application. And if we do have 45 days beta testing, right?
It's actually 90 days.
90
Yeah,
days
I've got
beta
a.
testing. So if you really want to,
You mean proof of concept?
yeah.
That's exactly what we call it.
I want to run through, go through it. I know you guys, everybody want to probably go home. We got about 7 minutes.
7 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, go through this real quick then. All right, so SD-WAN product structure. So we by default, we can support 4 WAN links. We can actually do more because there's a total of 6 interfaces on these Advantech SD-WAN boxes. But again, they could be MPLS, dedicated internet, broadband, wireless. The bandwidth tiers that we offer, it's 50 megs, 100 megs, 250, 500, 1,000, 2,000 megs, 5,000, and 10 gigs. Okay, so each of those have different pricing structures. Includes the network managed SD-WAN edge appliance, and we do have high availability options. So if you have a customer that's concerned about hardware failover, we can provide 2 SD-WAN CPEs at each location. We can run it active standby or active-active. Any questions?
Real quick, MPLS is kind of built for multi-location type scenarios. SD-WAN, you can do it as a single site, correct?
You could, but it wasn't really meant for that. Basically, if you did a single site, it's really acting as a glorified router/firewall, right? It's mainly meant to actually connect multiple locations together, either in and we will support a hub spoke design or a fully meshed design. So what SD-WAN actually does is, if you have all of these locations, typically in an MPLS environment, you connect them into an MPLS network, and there's a host site or a data center that all these remote sites connect into, right? With SD-WAN, what it does is you can use these various connections, or let's say we're using internet connections, and it will set up dynamic VPNs connecting each of the locations. Now, again, we could do hub spoke where they can only talk to the host site or the data center, or we can do fully meshed where the remote locations can all talk to each other without having to actually go back to the host. Make sense?
Yeah.
All right, so some of the benefits, obviously there's return on investment, hopefully saving them some money, right? Simplifying the network complexity, right? Hopefully less devices in their locations, so that it's a single CPE device as opposed to routers and firewalls, and WAN optimization appliances, things like that. Network reliability, we can offer load balancing if they have multiple connections, as well as automatic failover, right? That's a key selling point there. In application performance, basically we can create policies that can be applied for applications, right? So there's the WAN optimization portion of it, application load balancing if it has to go through multiple circuits. All right, so I am going to go through the portal, or actually before I go through the portal, since we're short on time here, I did want to, we're not going to be able to do this use case, but I did want to quickly show you guys.
Yeah.
So we are ready as far as to quote and sell today. Basically, you need to go through Mo to actually get a quote, but there is a 90-day test drive proof of concept. So if you have a prospect that is interested but maybe is still a little wary of the technology, we will provide them with a proof of concept where we'll send them 3 devices to send to 3 of their locations to test it out. Okay, and that's for 90 days.
There you go, man.
Okay?
You know, when you're dropping your first.
It doesn't have to be 3. If they only have 2, that's fine. But you know, it's not going to cost them extra. It's not going to cost them anything.
Nothing, zero, zip.
And myself and our other sales engineers are available, you know, to hop on your calls to help you with some training. And we can also do, you know, we have an actual portal demo that we can do, which, you know, I'm going to show you real quick, but you know, typically that takes 20 minutes. All right, so this is the portal for our SD-WAN. So what the client will actually get access to is the analytics and the monitoring portion of this. Now this is a demo. This is not a live customer or anything like that. So what they'll have access to here is basically a lot of the data that is going through the SD-WAN. This is in this dashboard, they'll be able to actually view the actual top sites or locations that by bandwidth, the top access circuits by bandwidth. And what I like to show is initially a site map. So here, the items in green are the actual locations where there's SD-WAN CPE. The blue are actual controllers, which in a real environment, the client isn't going to see the actual controllers. They should just see basically the SD-WAN CPEs. So this is just a site map. What's a nice thing to do, or a nice thing for them to actually see, is they can view bandwidth utilization usage. In this case, this is showing all the utilization for all the devices that are on the network. Now I can actually break it down also by availability. This is a good tool if you have a client whose circuits are constantly going up and down. This will basically give them a graphical view as to these little breaks are where there's been outages, right? Now they should be red. I don't know why they're white, but those are supposed to be where there have been outages. So if you have a client that has been having issues with their circuits, then this is something that they can use to kind of show that. I can break this down also by the actual specific location. So this would be the Chicago location.
What's controller again? What is that?
Controllers are actually those are the SD-WAN devices that provide the routing. So they're kind of the brains of the SD-WAN network. So these SD-WAN devices connect to the controllers to get the routing information. All right. So some of the other things that they may want to look at is the actual applications. Show all. And this is data that and when we stated single pane, what we mean is the customer may be able to get some of this data, but from different sources, right? The bandwidth utilization may be coming from their carrier, or they may be using SolarWinds, right? Whereas, some of the security information may be coming from their firewall, right? With this portal, basically that can be combined onto a single portal, on a single web portal. So what this is showing you is basically top applications by session. So you'll see here, I can click on that, and basically, this shows me Facebook sessions for this particular location. It can also show bandwidth utilization based off of categories, URL categories. One of the security features is remember I stated we can do URL content filtering. So this is an example of it can show you as to how much bandwidth those categories are actually using. You can also do it by categories. as far as search engines. Click on that and it'll show you more granular detail. It can also show you as far as how much bandwidth the rules are actually taking. Now we don't have a ton of rules in this demo, but if you did have more than one rule, it can show you how much bandwidth each of those rules are actually taking up. Now we don't have any security threats actually being injected into this demo, but if there were any kind of threats, you could see it via the threats portion of the dashboard, where if you click on malware, it'll show you the top malware that it's actually seen, infected applications, the top victims, possibly on their network, as well as top attackers. Where are those coming from? Now, access to the logs can be viewed by clicking on logs and different types of logs, firewall logs, antivirus logs. Now, these logs can be downloaded. Now, if there are logging software out there that Versa will already connect with, there is an API available. So if you have any customers that are using Splunk, we can work with them to actually set up that API. Now, for more real-time information, there's the monitor portion. Typically, what a client may want to be able to see here is what's traffic like right now in real time. I can click on the interfaces that I want to actually see traffic coming in and going out of. And it'll start generating information.
Is there a reason for different colored Ethernet connections up there? Are there different types of either on-net or off-net WANs, or what's that telling me?
Basically, the blue I believe is what is it? The blue are WAN connections, and then the green is a LAN connection. Now, obviously, these could probably be labeled better as far as WAN-MPLS, WAN-DIA, or something like that. So it's easier to tell outside of having to memorize. Oh, this interface is the MPLS. This interface is the DIA, right? Okay. Well, that's pretty much. I just wanted you guys to actually see the portal. Typically we'd have more time to actually go through it, about 20, 30 minutes. But I wanted to make sure you guys could see how much data is available.